in the subarctic Lapland region in circles seen from space. Sami herdsmen are at the center of a stampede called a Reindeer Cyclone. But something's wrong. The Sami normally let reindeer roam free.
There are hundreds of reindeer in these huge circular pens. What on earth is going on here? Could this be in culling?
But the Sami approach not with knives or guns, but something else.
I've seen this kind of equipment before. These guys are probing for radiation.
Sensors on the abdomen test the tissue for radioactivity. But why? This is an utterly remote corner of subarctic wilderness.
I'm looking at this area, and there is no nuclear plant. There's no nuclear testing facility. Why are they testing these reindeer for radioactivity?
According to the Sami tribesmen here, the problems began more than 30 years ago. In fact, they know the exact date in 1986.
This is the year of Chernobyl.
In communist Russia on April 26th, poorly trained engineers begin safety tests at the badly designed nuclear plant outside the city of Chernobyl. A drop in power causes a chain reaction and reactor 4 explodes, firing a deadly cloud of cesium-137 into the atmosphere, radiation equivalent to 400 nuclear bombs.
Chernobyl is the single worst disaster in the history of atomic power. It's the world's first ever level 7 nuclear incident. But how does a disaster at a Soviet nuclear power plant have any bearing on radioactive reindeer more than 1,000 miles away in Sweden?
Weather satellites point to the answer.
Up in the latitudes of parts of Europe, the winds are actually flowing from east to west.
Following the explosion, the radioactive cloud above the decimated power station begins drifting westwards. Over Ukraine, Finland, and on to Sweden.
The Soviet government is covering up the entire incident. This toxic cloud of cesium-137 is propagating across Europe, and most people have no idea.
November 10th, 2016. A satellite flying above Maryland spots something strange.
First thing that pops out is this giant white bubble here in the middle of the landscape.
It looks like a radome, a golf ball type structure that protects super powerful radar systems. But at 200 feet across, it is far too big and the wrong shape.
It literally looks like a giant egg.
It almost looks like a spaceship has landed. It even looks like there's a stairway leading up into it.
What makes the dome especially intriguing is its location. Aberdeen Proving Ground, part of Edgewood Arsenal. The scene of secret experiments carried out on humans, living and dead.
You really have to wonder what kind of tests would require a facility like we see in the image.
Possible evidence comes from an FBI raid on an Arizona warehouse in January 2014. Inside, agents discover buckets of limbs and a female head sewn onto another body, destined for sale to the U.S. military.
The FBI files on this investigation have been sealed, so there's no real way to know which bodies ended up at which military bases and what kind of tests they were subjected to.
Human experimentation at the base in the image began decades ago.
A lot of work is classified, but some programs like Operation Delirium, where US soldiers were dosed with PCP, sarin gas, just to test the effects, those types of drills were conducted at this location.
The authorities claim that experiments on humans have now ceased. April 12th, 2019. An Earth observation satellite passing over the Western Sahara captures this image of the reshot structure.
The reshot structure is the most extraordinary spiral-like arrangement of rocks with these brown and blue lines. I mean, it looks spectacular. I mean, it's hardly surprising people have called it the Eye of the Sahara.
Since it was first photographed by Gemini 4 astronauts in 1965, the precise origin of the 25-mile diameter structure has baffled investigators. Yet the 2019 image reveals another mystery hidden within its concentric circles.
In the middle of the picture is an almost perfect square with loops on the corners.
The presence of the unusual lone structure baffles archaeologists.
What's really strange is that it's there in the middle of absolutely nowhere.
This is in a place that's pretty inhospitable to life. There's no arable land. You're quite a long way from anything that could be considered civilization.
How can you possibly survive out here? Why would you need a structure like this?
According to one legend, the structure is somehow aligned to the greatest mythical city of antiquity.
One of the most intriguing theories about the Eye of the Sahara is that it's actually the lost city of Atlantis.
In the 4th century BC, the philosopher Plato writes about the lost civilization beneath the waves.
Plato's description of Atlantis begins with an island in the middle, and it's surrounded by concentric rings of land. I can see how looking at the Eye of the Sahara could resemble his description of Atlantis.
Looking at the image, it's immediately apparent that this is the Saqqara mortuary complex of the stepped pyramid of Djoser.
The pyramid is 4,700 years old, making it the oldest pyramid in the world.
But to a trained eye, there's something in the image that doesn't look right.
You can clearly see from above something that I think would not be visible at all from the ground.
Looking at the image, there's a faint outline of something underneath the sand.
Further analysis of the image compounds the mystery.
If you look closely at this image, you can see that this is actually around the entire pyramid and not just on the west side.
The satellite appears to have revealed a series of massive hidden structures surrounding one of the wonders of the ancient world.
This image is absolutely incredible, how intricate this whole system is. What are those things for?
When teams of archaeologists begin excavating, what they discover shocks them.
It's extraordinary. What these teams are finding is that this is actually a trench. It's a continuous rectangular enclosure, for want of a better word.
Analysis suggests the giant trench stretches nearly 2,500 feet by 2,000 feet.
This raises a whole host of questions. What is this trench? Why was it dug? And does it relate somehow to the ceremonial function of this site?
September 8th, 2018. The Worldview 3 satellite over San Francisco Bay, California, spots some strange activity.
This ship has what seems like a really long tail, just dragging behind the ship. I mean, what could it be for?
It's really weird to see a ship pulling something so long and skinny.
Scale analysis reveals the mystery tail is 2,000 feet long.
You see these tiny little white bobs along the line, and I'm wondering if they're buoys for a net, specifically a gill net.
If this is a giant drift gill net, its presence here alarms experts. Maritime law prohibits this kind of fishing within 3 miles of the coast, and with good reason.
Gill nets are this microfilament curtain that hangs down from this big line of buoys that are floating across the surface of the water.
If a fish tries to swim through it, which they try to, often they're caught head deep in by their gills.
And their gills get stuck, so they can no longer respirate, and they actually drown in the water.
It's like a giant wall of death.
Once deployed, gill nets can be left unattended.
Because these nets are left alone out there in the ocean, they sometimes get lost. They can break away from their anchors, a big storm can come through, and now you have a giant floating gill net just cruising on its own.
Every year, a fishery operating in the Atlantic loses 25,000 of them. June 26, 2015. In orbit over Kansas, in the Midwest of the United States, the Landsat Copernicus satellite captures this image.
This satellite image is intriguing. It shows a number of symbols, crosses, lines, X's, triangles, seemingly in a random pattern carved into the landscape.
Some of the shapes almost look like letters, a Z, a T. Is there a code here?
Of course, the immediate question is, what do they mean?
When archaeologist Karen Bellinger studies the image, she sees something familiar in the patterns.
There are sites around the world where symbols similar to some of the things I'm seeing in this image have been found in ancient rock art, in caves, and in petroglyphs.
Bellinger reveals that 9 of the shapes match a series of 32 symbols engineered by our far distant ancestors.
They are found in sites throughout the world, everywhere humans have settled, and sites that are very old. I mean, 40,000 years old and more. They are purposeful, and they are repeated time and again.
What baffles analysts is that the same symbols appeared around the world before international trade and travel became widespread.
The fact that only 32 symbols emerge as consistent, utterly consistent across time and space, leads some to theorize that this is some early form of communication.
If these symbols found around the world are an early form of language, they predate the earliest known written texts, Sumerian cuneiform, by over 30,000 years.
If this were to be proven, it would be earth-shattering. It would rewrite our timeline for the development of human intellect and artistic creativity.
Studies suggest that humans arrive in North America at least 20,000 years ago. Yet ancient peoples have tended to leave symbolic markings on rock faces or as geoglyphs, not carved deep into the land like this.